All right, what's going on, everyone? So a Russian mill blogger is asking the dangerous question, are we actually winning this war? Which I feel like you can talk your way through for a little while and just declare victory and move on. But at the 4-year point in the war, some of that luster starts to wear off. So today we're going to look into why this specific mill blogger is saying that Russia may actually be struggling in winning the conflict, and it has to do with the expansion of the kill zone at the front. Starting out here with Russian mill blogger Wagner Kitten, which is quite the name. He says the enemy has once again seized the small sky in the Ukrainian theater of operations. The enemy is expanding the so-called kill zone, hunting for live forces, military and civilian transport, and any object that falls under its objective control as far as 40 to 50 kilometers from the front line. The plans are to increase this notorious zone to 100 kilometers in our depth, and just in a moment, not in the Donbass, but also inside the Russian Federation. To be honest, many residents, at least of the Russian border regions, now want to hear the answer to one question, quote, are we really winning this special military operation? Now, I want to pull up a map to show you the distances that he's talking about here, because there's a couple different ways that this new drone wall or the expansion of the kill zone really matters. So using Deep State map, and we'll stick into the eastern area of Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, when we zoom in, Deep State does a good job of marking some of these areas as contested, gray. This is kind of like the base level of this gray zone. The lines right now in Ukraine are not World War I, where you have a trench of Ukrainian soldiers and a trench of Russian soldiers looking at themselves across no man's land. It's mixed at the very least. But what we've seen recently is, here's a good example here. So a portion of territory that there's just too many drones, both Russian and Ukrainian, to where anybody moving into that area is likely to be hit. So what Wagner Kitten is talking about here is now this zone that generally has been 10 to 20 kilometers deep is expanding to 40 to 50 kilometers inside of Russian territory. So if we use our ruler here to give you an idea, again, just on the outskirts of Kramatorsk, so a key hub here in eastern Ukraine, this is kind of the pocket getting the most attention right now. Let's go right here. So if we've got roughly, we'll eyeball it, there we go. There's about 10 kilometers on or around the front line. That is not an area anybody is going to be able to move through without being detected. What Wagner Kitten is saying is this is now shifted. Even if we stick with this gray zone here, this is shifted to 40 to 50 kilometers in some areas. Do you see the amount of territory that all of a sudden everyone is being killed in? And there's a couple different ways to look at this, right? Because we know Ukraine has the ability to hit targets throughout the entirety of not just the occupied territories, but inside of Russian territory, like Russia proper, the old Russia before they annexed some of these areas in Ukraine. We also know Russia has the ability to hit targets all throughout Ukraine. So what is the big deal about this little 40 to 50 kilometer stretch? And it has to do not just with the quality of the drones being used, but more importantly right now, the quantity of high quality drones. And that's a major change that we've seen in just the last few months. So yes, for years now, Ukraine has had the ability to hit something. Let's again stick with this area. They could hit soldiers massing in Popasna, which was taken back at the very beginning of the war, from Ukrainian territory for a long time now. That's nothing new. But the middle-range strike drones and bombers that can carry out an attack 30, 40, 50 plus kilometers into Russian territory were limited. So, if you hit one Russian concentration in Popasna, that's significant, right? They are within range. When you can hit them with 20, 30, 40, 50 plus drones a day, it shuts that off. It turns off movement. It no longer can be a staging area. It eliminates some of the forward supply points and is pushing them further and further back to where what we've seen recently are more and more Russian soldiers trying to advance forward in small groups, 1, 2, 3 individuals on foot. And I want to expand this a little further south to show you just how significant this change is and why we are hearing more and more concerns from the Russian side. If we go to the southern portion of Ukraine here, so we've got Kherson and Zaporizhia, just to the north of Crimea. If we look at the stretch across here is 93 kilometers. This Russian mill blogger, and he's not the only one, we've heard it from multiple sources at this point, the Ukraine is moving that middle strike range, again, not just quality, but quantity. Not hitting one Russian target, but hitting 50 plus Russian targets at this range in a given day in this one location. It turns it off. Ukraine now has that ability to effectively target everything in mass throughout all of the Russian-occupied territories. And what Wagner Kitten is getting at is, down here in the south and the east, you do have a bit of a buffer on or about 100-plus kilometers between Ukraine and Russia proper. You don't have that up further north. The majority of the front lines are right up against Russian territory. I mean, you've got a little buffer zone here in Sumy, a little buffer zone here in Kharkiv, but a lot of Russian territory is not like Belgorod is within range of large-scale massed Russian-Ukrainian drone strikes day in and day out. And there's a couple different ways that Ukraine has gone about doing this, right? So this didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They've been building towards this capacity for quite a while now. The first is just increasing the capabilities of their units at the front. So, in fact, we've got a report we're going to run through here in a minute with footage showing Ukraine's SBU Alpha unit just in the last week. It's like 7 days. Says on film they were able to verify that they killed or wounded 1,883 Russian soldiers. That is one Ukrainian unit. So the volume, the effectiveness of some of these units are standing up. Ukraine is also increasing the number of drone units that they have. One perfect example here, one that we are heavily connected with, all of us, is the Sarapim Battalion, the 2nd Unmanned Systems Forces of the 104th Territorial Defense Brigade. We, as a community, have been providing them vehicles. We are standing up their entire battalion worth of vehicles, and we got an incredible message from their commander a couple days ago that I wanted to share with you. And with that, we're going to play some footage, exclusive footage, from the Sarapim unit showing how these vehicles, the cars for Ukraine, are being utilized at the front. This gives you chills, gave me chills at least, reading it, from the commander of the Serapims. Quote, "Wearing an American flag was the norm before. Most of us take pride in having one of the greatest countries of the world standing on our side, the side of law, truth, justice. Today, the situation has changed." And I'm playing here clips of the Serapims in action. He says, quote, "If you are wearing an American flag now, you have to explain yourself. Why are you wearing a country's flag whose support has not been less than expected, but has actually dissolved into total Machiavellism? Today and tomorrow, my battalion's personnel, the effectiveness of our crews, does not depend on public policies of different countries. They depend solely on specific people and their support." He's talking about you. He says, "And in this story, specific citizens of the United States are the people who make the United States flag on my checkpoint and on my helmet and on my armor a symbol of faith, trust, and deep gratitude. Preston Stewart and his audience of millions, Claire Olerex and the Car for Ukraine team is literally our foundation for supplying the Sarapim Battalion's personnel with fighting vehicles. I will say more. Without the help of our American friends, the condition of the unit today would have been catastrophic. By the mercy of God, our American friends have already passed us a second car, a Toyota Hilux, in a state that would be the envy of every unit in the South. Is our battalion grateful for the support of the American people? More than grateful. The American flag proudly adorns our armor, symbolizing protection and care by sincere friends of Ukraine in our righteous war for independence and sovereignty, and for the right to be Ukrainians, and for our way of life." And that was a couple weeks ago. This thing is moving fast, right? Because they need vehicles today. So while the commander was so grateful for the second vehicle to be delivered, I'm proud to say that today we just delivered the 6th vehicle. And next week, 3 more coming to the Sarapim. So what you're doing, and that link is in the description and pinned comment below. I'm so proud to be a part of this one, and you can see the direct impact. It is not just helping these soldiers at the front, help keep them alive, get them into and out of the battlefield where, otherwise they might be walking. But that support, they're looking at that, recognizing that while countries around the world might not stand there and might not provide additional assistance or might not be living up to the expectations we once set, they understand that it's the people, it's you, all of you, together, us together, are the ones that are standing firm with what is right, standing on the side of justice here. So just an incredibly humbling statement. Couldn't be more proud of the work that we're all doing to help these guys in their fight for freedom. Now, I mentioned that it's not just standing up new units like the Serapims, but also the expansion of capabilities within some of these others. SBU just put out this footage earlier today where they said the destruction of occupiers continues. The Alpha soldiers of the Security Service of Ukraine are at work. Just over the last week, the FPV drone operators of the Alpha Special Operations Center destroyed and hit 1,883 Russian occupiers. So that's not bombers. That's not mid-range strike drones. That's not one-way attack drones into deep Russian targets inside the country. Those are FPV drone strikes. You're talking about in that 10 to 30 kilometer range. SBU Alpha is just wiping up in recent days. It's a staggering number. And this is the type of thing that the Ukrainian defense minister has talked about recently. You recall that towards the end of last year, it might have been right at the beginning of this year, he said 50,000 Russian soldiers killed or wounded, or seriously wounded, every month. Take them out of the fight. They are dangerously close to that. And it is a shocking number by all metrics. Fedorov, the new Ukrainian defense minister, just said, quote, "For the fourth consecutive month, the enemy's losses exceeded the pace of replenishing his troops." Put another way, more Russian soldiers were killed or seriously wounded than they were able to bring into the ranks in March. He says, "We are confidently moving towards the strategic goal of 50,000 Russian soldiers eliminated each month. The effectiveness of air defenses is systematically increasing. In March, the number of Shahed and Gerber drones destroyed by enemy interceptors doubled, or destroyed by Ukrainian interceptors doubled." He said, "Despite the enemy's attempts to deploy record resources to regain the initiative, their achievements are an increase in losses." Again, the drone component of this war, which is taking center stage. In a recent video, we talked about it's more than 95% of Russian casualties at the front are due to Ukrainian drones. So when you see the stats around drone warfare, this is not like a side dish. This is the main dish. This is the thing that is adjusting the course of the war at the front. Fedorov, some crazy stats here, says in March, 247 Russian air defense and radar systems were destroyed. You know how hard it is to manufacture those, how long it takes, how expensive air defense assets are? Like, yes, Russia is still producing equipment day in and day out. The entire Russian military-industrial complex is not gone. It's not offline, not by a long shot. It takes a long time to build 247 air defense systems, and that's all shapes and sizes, right? We have videos in recent days of Buk, Tor, S-300, S-400, everything is getting hit, right? So that's not all the highest end, it's not all the lowest end, but that is a massive number. That has a direct impact and is one of the reasons why in recent weeks we've seen an increase in Ukrainian drone effectiveness at deep ranges inside of Russia. This has an effect. I mean, whatever percentage you put on that, say that 274 knocked out in a month is 1%, is 10%. Again, pick whatever figure you want. Those are fewer air defense assets able to identify and intercept drones that are flying into Russian territory. He says more than 121 multiple launch rocket systems were destroyed, 212 guns and self-propelled guns, so artillery, and 33,686 enemy UAVs with a total of 151,207 targets hit. He said across the board, this is a historical maximum. So what we're watching play out right now, in a lot of ways, I would argue that we're watching Ukraine regain the initiative on the battlefield, and it's entirely due to this, right? So we are seeing small-scale advances, tactical counterattacks in certain areas, but we've seen a change in the drone war where we have Russian analyst after Russian analyst complaining that Ukraine is taking control of the skies at a deeper range than previously. And it happened, from their perspective, relatively quickly. So instead of 10, now it's 40, 50, upwards of 100 kilometers where they can't get near the front without coming under Ukrainian drone fire. And with the number of targets, number of strikes increasing, the number of destroyed Russian equipment and soldiers increasing, this is in an area of the war that we haven't been in a long time. Like, I would argue you got to go back to the fall of 2022, the Ukrainian counterattacks at Kherson and Kharkiv, where they had this much of the initiative moving in their favor. Russia right now is adapting, trying to find ways to suppress those numbers, find out how can they advance towards the front without losing as many soldiers as they are, how can they not lose as many air defense systems as they can. The cost of the war is racking up very quickly, and it is due to the constant innovation on this drone front, not just the equipment and the soldiers getting better at it, but also the increase of these drone units like the 2nd Unmanned Systems Battalion, Sarapim, the unit that we are currently supporting through Cars for Ukraine. Of course, for anybody interested or able to contribute to that campaign or just keep up with it, right? That link is in the description as well as the pinned comment below. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.